Hey guys, it's Gretchen and welcome back to my channel. So, you're thinking about getting a tattoo, but you're not quite sure if you can commit to it being as obvious as a regular tattoo. So what do you do in a situation like this? You do your research, of course, and then you come across a super popular type of tattoo called white ink tattoos. They sound great because it's entirely white, but are they as great as they sound? Well, personally, I have no idea. However, as someone who formerly wanted a white ink tattoo, I thought today would be kind of interesting to just kind of dive into what a white ink tattoo is, why the popularity for it, and some pros and cons to them. So, what is a white ink tattoo? It is a tattoo made entirely of white ink. Duh. There is no additional color to these types of tattoos and there's no outline. White ink tattoos actually take far longer to create than typical tattoos because you kind of have to do multiple passes in order for the white ink to show up on the skin. As such, this can lead to white ink tattoos being far more painful than regular tattoos because if you think about it, say a tattoo typically takes an hour, say just like a regular tattoo takes an hour. It could take far longer to do a white ink tattoo because the artist has to pass over the same spot multiple times to make sure that white ink has settled into the skin and that the skin wants to accept it. This isn't to say the tattoo itself, like the ink itself, causes pain, like the pain level is still the same, but because it requires multiple passes and it kind of extends how long the tattoo takes, that's what causes the pain. These types of tattoos can't have an outline, which means that sometimes these tattoos are done free-handed. If they don't go free-handed, they may be able to create a stencil or find a stencil that they can like lay on the skin and utilize, but because there's no outline, you can't put it down and just kind of ignore the outline you create for it. Most artists go freehand. That isn't to say that you can't have an outline, but typically for a white ink tattoo, there is none. So when it comes to the ink used in a white ink tattoo, that particular ink is actually thicker than the white ink used in like a regular tattoo. So say for like my hedgehog here, she does have some white ink in there, but that white ink is used to highlight areas of the tattoo, not to make the tattoo itself, but to highlight those areas. So because the rest of the tattoo is colored, it's got a lot of contrast to it, the white still stands out. It uses that lack of color to highlight those areas, whereas the white ink tattoo has nothing to contrast with. So that ink has to be thicker in order for it to stand out well enough that you can notice it. Again, white ink in a tattoo is used primarily to highlight something. It's not meant to be a standalone color. Something to keep in mind about white ink tattoos that even though they sound really cool like on paper and when you're looking at pictures, they fade over time, much like a regular tattoo, but they fade far quicker. And instead of, just looking like a tattoo that's faded a little bit, it looks like a scar. And this can also lead to the original art not looking the same as time passes. Again, because there's no outline, there's no true form to a white ink tattoo. Although it looks great at first, as time passes, you may not be able to tell what it is, or it just may look like a scar. So why are these types of tattoos super popular? Because if you're like me and you hadn't really delved into the world of tattoos much, the concept of a white ink tattoo is fantastic, especially if you're not used to having that color on your skin. It sounds like a great stepping stone into the world of tattoos. So white ink tattoos offer a more subtle tattoo, especially for those that aren't quite committed to having a regular tattoo. It offers you the tattoo without being in your face. As such, these tattoos are kind of semi-permanent. I mean, they stay on your skin. It will remain there like a regular tattoo, but because it fades so fast and it fades quickly over time, it's not really too much of a commitment. It's still a tattoo, don't get me wrong, but it's not in the sense of like a regular tattoo, if that makes any kind of sense. It's also not a huge commitment because it's not easily seen. Unless you have like this massive piece that you got done, white ink tattoos are not easily seen unless pointed out or unless you've got the angle correct for it. They're just very subtle. A bit of good news about white ink tattoos is that most designs can be done in white ink. Now, Does that mean they should be? Probably not, but they could be. So if you have a design in mind and you want a white ink tattoo, it most likely can be done. Now I've already mentioned that these can end up looking like scars over time. It just depends on the design and where you have it on your body and how your body reacts to it. It can also look like an embossing, which might be kind of cool. And so if that's an aesthetic you're going for when it comes to a tattoo, maybe a white ink tattoo is for you. Something else that's kind of interesting about white ink tattoos, they essentially can glow in black light. It's because of their white pigmentation, or lack thereof. So, what do you need to understand about white ink tattoos other than all the like little background information? If you are going to get a white ink tattoo, location on your body is key. As is finding an artist who has the skills to carry out a white ink tattoo. So if you're going to get a white ink tattoo, pick a spot on your body that rarely or never sees the sun. So possibly like your inner arm, maybe somewhere on your back, your ankles or something like that. Nothing that is out in the open. So your wrist, probably not the best location for a white ink tattoo because it is exposed far more than other areas. If it's exposed to the sun too often, that's what makes it fade faster. I mean, that's what makes any tattoo fade faster is exposure to the sun. If you'd like it to stick around a little bit longer, get your money's worth, you might want to avoid the sun for starters and putting it in a place that'll be exposed to the sun. Also keep in mind that any picture you may see of a white ink tattoo on the internet was most likely taken immediately after being done. So keep in mind that if you want a white ink tattoo, you want to get one, the pictures that you see online are immediately after the tattoo is done. So they look fantastic, but that's not what they look like a few hours later, a few days later, a few months later, a few years later. They do change drastically over time. Immediately after being done, and this is the same for any tattoo, the skin is raised and it's very red around the area. So it offers a really good contrast against whatever you've gotten done there, whether it's a regular tattoo or white ink tattoo. But with a white ink tattoo, that contrast makes the tattoo stand out so well and it looks gorgeous, and I understand that. But as the skin kind of calms down, the redness goes away, the swelling goes away, the raisedness of the skin goes away, the white ink no longer has something to contrast with, and so it looks more like just a lighter skin pigmentation on you. I've already mentioned this once before, but white ink tattoos can fade so fast, and by so fast I mean they can fade after just a few weeks, whereas regular tattoos fade, you know, over time. After a few years, they need a touch up here and there. White ink tattoos can be gone in just a matter of months because of how fast they fade. This is not to bash on white ink tattoos. This is not to say that all white ink tattoos are going to fade that quickly or that rapidly, but it is a risk. And it's a risk with any tattoo, but it's a higher risk with a white ink tattoo. Some people have noted that they've had their white ink tattoos for years, that while it's faded, it is still visible, but most people can't really see it unless you point it out to them. There's also the possibility that as your white ink tattoo fades, it can fade to a different color, such as like a gray, yellow, green color, and that just sounds putrid. Also, white ink makes it easier to see your skin's texture underneath of it, so as fading takes place, it can distort your original design, which doesn't sound that great. So when you're seeking an artist to do a white ink tattoo, keep in mind that not every single artist is going to feel comfortable doing a white ink tattoo, and they may turn you away because they are super tricky to actually do well. One reason why artists may not want to do a white ink tattoo is if something does go wrong with it. A lot of people are quick to blame the artist and not necessarily the risks that go along with what they specifically got, as well as aftercare. I mean, we're all quick to blame the person that did it, but we don't always want to admit that maybe we did something wrong. White ink tattoos are gorgeous. They are absolutely striking to look at immediately after being done. Again, I can't stress this enough. White ink tattoos are prone to fading quickly, and they can end up looking more scar-like than tattoo-like. Now, if that's the aesthetic you're going for, then maybe this is right up your alley. But if it's not really what you want, rethink what you want to get done. These types of tattoos have become super popular because of how inconspicuous they are. You know, they're not as vibrant, not as in your face as a regular tattoo, and sometimes people won't notice them unless you point them out. So if you're trying to get a tattoo, but you don't want it to be as visible, you know, maybe the white ink tattoo is the way to go. It doesn't grab your attention immediately like a regular tattoo would. So this is all coming from someone who, before she even had any tattoos, was looking into a white ink tattoo. I thought the concept of them was just fascinating to me. I was like, yes, that's a great way to get that tattoo that you want without it drawing too much attention to you. But there are a lot of risks that go along with a white ink tattoo, and they're almost not worth it, in my opinion. Some people think they're great, you know, they got them the tattoo they wanted, and yes, they faded over time, but for some, they turn out looking great, even after fading. But there are a lot more risks that go along with a white ink tattoo. Let me know in the comments below if you yourself have a white ink tattoo, you know, when you got it done, has it faded at all, you know, am I completely full of crap and yours has been perfectly fine? You know, again, it depends on a person's body, really. It's kind of the same with piercings, tattoos. Depends on how your body reacts to certain things. You know, maybe you're one of those people that got a white ink tattoo 10 years ago and it still looks as amazing as it did when you got it. Let us know in the comments below. Or are you part of the standard where you got one done and it's just like, it's definitely faded and looks a little wonky compared to what it did look like, whether you would recommend getting a white ink tattoo or not. I still think the concept of them is fascinating. I think they look amazing when first done, but from what I've seen as time wears on, white ink tattoos don't necessarily wear that great. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Going down there and hit that subscribe button wherever it may be, because I don't know, even though I do. This is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you want to know when I upload, and in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye guys.